Yes, at Jurassic Ark, as we said, we're now able to have more groups come along, and we are getting more groups, so that's always encouraging. Homeschool groups, church groups, anyone who wants to come along. And yes, here are the guys who have helped maintain the site through all of the time when we couldn't have visitors and set it up in the first place, and are now keeping it going. And in the middle there is Daryl, who looks after it, who's the regular curator who works on the site all the time, and a couple of our volunteer helpers who have helped us set up some of the experiments and helped with the excavations and also the machinery and all of the other things that's needed to keep it going. And of course, they're standing around one of our most popular items there is one of our dinosaurs. And yes, people love dinosaurs, but we need to tell people the truth about dinosaurs because as the Apostle Paul warned young Timothy, and through him, the whole church, of course, is that we need to beware of false science. And we're going to look at a bit about that. How can we discern false science? Because it is a problem. It will lead you astray from the faith. And I've heard many testimonies of people who have departed from the faith, not just because of dinosaurs, but because of the whole approach to fossils and rocks and the earth in general, but and evolutionary ideas in general. So how do we cope with that? Well, we tell people the truth. And so that's why we like people to come to Jurassic Ark. And yes, when they arrive, they will see dinosaurs. We have Triceratops there near the entrance. And of course, we need to remind people that the term Jurassic has nothing to do with dinosaurs. It was originally named by someone who did believe the Bible, and it's to do with the rocks in the Jura Mountains. And we have discussed that history in the past, but everyone thinks, yes, Jurassic dinosaurs. No, they should know their history, and that's one of the things that we try to do, is fill in those gaps in people's knowledge. And as you go into the park, yes, we have big dinosaurs and we have small dinosaurs. And it's important to remember that dinosaurs, we think of them as being really huge, but they started out small in their lives, because we know that, because we have dinosaur eggs, so we know how big they were when they were born. So they had to live part of their lives as being quite small when they were juveniles. So Noah would have had no problem with them fitting on the ark if he was taking juveniles. And even the big fierce ones like T-Rex would have started out life and tiptoed around the flowers and smelt them, and probably ate some of them as well, because we're told that all animals were vegetarian in the first place. However big they are or however small they are, the kids really love them. So it is important that we tell them the truth about dinosaurs. And we have some Australian dinosaurs as well. This is an Australian specimen, and that's down in amongst our living fossil garden. And even though these are now extinct, they're not really living fossils, but in the fossil record, they appear fully formed. We can classify them, give them names, and then they disappear. They die out. There's no evidence that they ever changed from one kind into another, from one kind of dinosaur into another, let alone into another kind of creature like a bird. And we'll take up that a little bit later on. Now, as well as these models, you can come and experience virtual dinosaurs. We have a program run by an app called Dream AR, where you can scan a picture that we have set up there, and there will pop up a dinosaur in your phone camera. This is quite clever. So you can have your picture taken with a dinosaur, and you can pose for that and make it as dramatic as you like. And you can have a lot of fun with that. You can have pterosaurs flying through the skies. Here they are, flying through the skies. Pterosaurs look quite realistic, don't they? And in the Dream AR app, these do actually move. These are just still pictures from them. So it's quite fun to stand with your phone camera and sort of scan around the sky and have a pterosaur flapping its wings, flying over the park. Now, another evidence for dinosaurs, of course, in many parts of the world are footprints. And here is a group from one of our open days looking at some footprints. Now, these are not the original fossils. This is actually a trackway of dinosaurs that we made, but it is based on a real trackway out in Winton in Queensland. And it's interesting, after we made this, we showed pictures of it to the Australian Dinosaur Museum, and they were really impressed. In fact, they were so impressed they wanted to know how we made it. We haven't told them, it's a trade secret. But they really were impressed. Now, the standard story about these is that this is a big, fierce predator who was chasing some smaller dinosaurs for dinner. However, back in 2011, a Professor Salisbury did a study of these, and you can identify dinosaurs from their footprints. If you've got a whole lot of them, you can look at their stride length, you can study the individual structure in a fair bit of detail, and you can identify what major kind of dinosaur that made these. And Professor Salisbury back in 2011 said, no, the big one was not a big, fierce meat-eating predator chasing his lunch. This was actually, these are the footprints of a vegetarian dinosaur. And this was published in the literature. So the people at Winton actually did know about this, but they still persist with the tourist story because, well, it doesn't make a good story. This is one big vegetarian and a few other smaller vegetarians. Everyone likes a good story of a big fierce predator chasing a few smaller dinosaurs, and so they persist with that, even though they know that it's been shown that this is by a professor and published in the professional literature that this was actually, the big one was actually a vegetarian. Now, interestingly, a new study came out this week that confirmed that in the Journal of the Royal Society Interface. So that's a prominent British journalist. They used artificial intelligence. You'd enjoy this, Sam. They used artificial intelligence to study dinosaur traps. And so they trained this artificial intelligence program or app or whatever you call it to recognize different dinosaur tracks. And so they got them, and footprints. They got this program to look at all of these. And then they got it to look at this particular trackway. It's a very famous one. It's known all over the world. And the AI, the artificial intelligence, confirmed that this was a large vegetarian dinosaur. So interesting when we get on to our topic of beware of false science. But anyway, back to Jurassic Ark. We have this cast. This is a well-known cast. I've seen a cast of this same dinosaur at the Natural History Museum. And the reason we have it there is because it shows a typical pose of dinosaurs when they are actually found as fossils. Now, we see them in museums all nicely set up with their long necks projecting in front and dragging their tails behind. But when they are dug up, a lot of them are actually found in this particular pose. It's got a name, a pistotonic death pose, but don't worry about that. This head back, tail back pose is very distinctive, and lots of dinosaurs are found with this pose, and it's well known. And interesting research has shown that this is the sort of thing that happens in an animal that's drowning. You get a spasm of the muscles in the back as it sort of literally takes its last gasp. And in a long-necked creature with a long flexible neck and a long flexible tail, that sort of spasm is going to pull the head back, pull the tail back. and you get this particular death pose. But it doesn't last long, because when the animal dies, of course, the muscles relax, and so that will fall apart, that pose. So the animal is drowning, and it also has to be very, very quickly. So we have a typical drowned dinosaur. It's mounted on one of our murals, and but it's not a rarity. It's just a particularly nice example, this one. Now we also have another drowned dinosaur. This is a Chinese dinosaur named Guanlong Wukai, which literally means crested dragon of 5 colors. Now the 5 colors refers to the rocks it was found in. The genus name crested dragon is interesting. The Chinese have found a lot of dinosaurs recently, and they give them names of something long. So Mi Long, Guan Long, and long in Chinese means dragon. The Chinese know a dragon when they see them, and as far as they're concerned, these are dragon bones. Now, the other interesting thing about this one is that it's also drowned. It's drowned by and preserved by a process that we do observe in living things or things that are alive and die today. Couple of young visitors to Jurassic Ark identified this, didn't they, John? Yeah. Yes. Well, one young lad said, "Oh, I know how this happened. My dad keeps cows, and one of our cows drowned in the flood." Now, when an animal dies, particularly when a ruminant dies, of course, it has this great fermentation vat inside it, and of course that all swells up with gas, and eventually it will burst. However, cows, of course, are covered with the thick hide, with basically like a great big leather bag. So even though you may have an explosion inside, the bones will actually stay together because they're still contained within the skin, but they are separated out and messed up. And that's what's happened here. This dinosaur has drowned, and its insides have been blown apart, but its skin has been intact enough to keep them together. And so you have this collection of bones. So another drowned dinosaur. Now, another recent report in the scientific news that we found to do with dinosaurs relates to these two things we've just looked at, that death pose and the Chinese names. So recently reported on the 19th of November was this new Chinese dinosaur. And this was the name of their paper, Intestinal Preservation in a Bird-like Dinosaur Supports Conservatism in Digestive Canal Evolution Among Theropods. So they found this dinosaur. It had this great big blob of preserved tissue inside it, which they think is part of its intestines that's been preserved. Now, that's what they concentrated on in their paper. But because it was a species which they hadn't seen before, they have the right to give it a name. And so this is what they called it, Dualong Wangi. And if you name a dinosaur in the literature, right, you have to explain where your genus and species name came from. And so sure enough, here we are. The genus name is derived from the Dua Nation, which is an ethnic minority that live in Inner Mongolia in China. So it's named after a place in China. And they explain this quite explicitly, the Chinese, and that's the Chinese, what do they call them, pictogram or
pictogram.
Yes, for long, and that literally means dragon. That's what they wrote, so they are admitting we have found another Chinese dragon. And here is their photo of their dinosaur, and notice the pose. Notice the head back and tail back pose. Right.
By the way, Don, for those who can't figure it out, the head is at the top,
yes,
the arms are on the left-hand side, the feet are at the bottom, and the recurved tail coming out to the right-hand side.
Yes. Yes. Now they don't make a big thing about that in the in the paper because they're more interested in, well, giving it a name and also the sort of blob of tissue inside it, which they think is preserved intestines. But again, wherever you get a whole skeleton or almost a whole skeleton, you have that distinctive dinosaur, that distinctive death pose, just like the one that we have at Jurassic Ark. And now the other interesting thing is they refer to feathers. Now they just gloss over this a bit, but if you read the captions to their illustrations, they say, oh, well, it's got feathers. Can anyone see any feathers? You see any feathers?
Can't see any now.
I'll show you where the feathers are supposed to be on its back. So if you look, and that inset in the upper right-hand corner there, that's meant to be a close-up of the feathers. Are you impressed?
Well, I've got fossil feathers in my collection. You've seen them, Diane, and they don't look a
Yes,
thing
I
like
have
that.
actually. I took some photos of them, and they look nothing like this. In fact, let's have a closer look at this. Is their photo, and can you see any feathers? Now, this is important because this is the extent of feathers that you have reported. Whenever you see feathered dinosaur, no, they don't find any feathers. What they find are these sort of filamentous structures. Sometimes they do project out from the skin. They also claim there are feathers around the tail, which are small and project backwards. But yes, if you look very closely at it, there might be a few fine filaments. But that's about as good as it gets in terms of dinosaur feathers actually attached to dinosaurs. When they find fully formed feathers, they are attached to a creature that's not a dinosaur, or they just feathers on their own. And the only reason they're called dinosaur feathers is because they're found in a rock formation, or as we've seen in our own collection, in a piece of amber that is already dated as being the dinosaur age. There's no evidence actually connecting them to dinosaurs. Now, we're not just showing you this to pour scorn on those people who found this dinosaur and processed it and classified it. It is important that we remind people that there are plenty of opinions and theories that disagree with the Bible about creation and about the flood, but the facts never do. The facts are that dinosaurs appear in their own kinds and they don't change into other kind of dinosaurs, and there's no evidence that they change into birds either. They multiplied after their kind for as long as they lived on the earth. That's creation as described in Genesis. And then we have the evidence all over the world of drowned dinosaurs, and some of them are a lot bigger than this one. This one was only 1.5 meters long if you sort of stretched it out longer, and they have that distinctive death pose. So we have evidence of catastrophic and sudden burial. So there's plenty of evidence that actually fits the flood or fits the Bible. The facts don't disagree with the Bible, the facts support it. And that's because the real history of the world, of course, is not from nothingness to nature to human beings with a constant ascent from just nothingness to complexity. In fact, the history of the world is created perfection, right? Fully formed things in a perfect world. But since then, the world has gone downhill. So we find lots of evidence of things going downhill, things degenerating, things dying out, things going wrong. That's the real history of the world. And you will understand anything, whether it be dinosaurs, fossils, living things, if you look at it from this biblical point of view, from this biblical worldview. Now, as we say, kids really love dinosaurs, so we have this wonderful book, What Happened to the Dinosaurs, because we need to know. And so this is a fun book. It features John Mackay and his 2 grandchildren who go out to dig dinosaurs, and they find all sorts of interesting evidence. And of course, we had to feature Jurassic Ark in it, of course. And this is also linked up to that Dream AR app that we have. You can use this book. Notice the little symbol down there of a dinosaur footprint. You can use that in the book to get extra information about dinosaurs and some good fun things. And so we start out at Jurassic Ark, and if we just click on this, you can see what happens with the little Dream AR app.
Welcome to Jurassic Ark. Please keep your seatbelt on at all times in a moving vehicle. And do not feed the fossils.
Okay, there you are, going past our first dinosaur there, the very, very popular one. And so do come and visit us at Jurassic Ark if you can. We're open for visitors, and we want lots. We had a wonderful open day this year. It was really good. We will have another one this year, but in the meantime, bring your group, whatever sort of group it is. Bring your enemies as well as your friends. It's amazing the number of skeptics we've had come to Jurassic Ark and actually see the evidence for themselves and gone away with things to think about, and some of them have been impacted on it and drawn to the Lord. So do come along. If you can't, well, you can find out about dinosaurs from our various sources, starting with our main website, creationresearch.net, but also our fact file and our Ask site.